So I'd actually been contacted by some folks within the intelligence community, and they had bought a number of smaller startups that were doing classified work, and then they asked me if I would join to run that group, which I did, and to figure out the defensive security strategy and be able to expose it in a way that is meaningful, because those are the things that are, that are swirling around out in the wild that will kill you right now.
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. We are doing something special. Something so special. We're hosting this event called On the Big Screen, where we're bringing together security leaders, CISOs, and also some of your favorite cybersecurity vendors to talk about the world of cybersecurity. And to make all of this happen, we have a great partner with me, Nick Lantuh, who is the CEO and co-founder of Interpres Security. Also, Nick, I've been very fortunate and blessed to get to know you and the team and to learn more about what y'all are building at Interpres Security. But most importantly, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So let's kick it off. I got word when I first heard about Interpres Security that the founder of Interpres Security, one of the co-founders, also was the co-founder for NetWitness. And my jaw dropped because that was like one of the first non-open source tools that I had any insight or exposure to. And at that time, this was back in 2010 where I learned about NetWitness when I started my cybersecurity career. And to have the opportunity to, work with you now, I'm like, oh man, I have a lot of questions for you. My first one is, how in the heck did you get started in this crazy world of cybersecurity?
Yeah, so cyber really started for me when I was running sales for a cyber company. And then obviously I had the opportunity to found NetWitness, which was kind of really the start of my career of running and building and founding companies.
When you got that initial exposure to founding the first company, NetWitness, was it like a tuning fork where you're like, this is what I was meant to do in the realm of cyber? Is it like running businesses for you?
Yeah, I'd always wanted to run my own business. That was always in my mind from childhood. And when I finally got the opportunity and, started doing it and realized that we were having success, I was really hooked. And, here I am now, 4 companies later.
Yeah.
So it's been a really fun ride over the last, almost 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the differentiator between yourself and, other founders? You had such success on your first one, and we're going to talk about the other companies that you founded, but you had a lot of success on each and every step along the way. I feel like you kind of have something that's within you, maybe a strategy, a process, or just a mindset that really sets you apart.
Well, I think it's a couple things, right? I mean, to have a successful company, you need to have an idea that makes sense and matters and can make a difference in the industry. You have to have an accepting market.
Yeah.
Probably most importantly, you just have to have great people around you that know how to execute. So I've been fortunate on all those fronts, every time with NetWitness, with eSentire, and now with Interpres, they've been fantastic companies. I did one turnaround in between eSentire and Interpres. But when you have a great idea, when you have a great market that's accepting of the solution and the timing's right, and then you put good people in play, to do what they do, it's magic.
Yes.
Lightning in a bottle.
What was the thing that led you to found NetWitness?
So I'd actually been contacted by some folks within the intelligence community, and it was through one of the large publicly traded government contractors, and they had bought a number of smaller startups that were doing classified work, and they had built this tool for several programs within the intel community. And they asked me if I could take a look at it. They knew what to do with the contract work and the bodies, the body shop kind of work, and they wanted to see if there was something that we could do with the actual product. And so I took a look at it, spent quite a bit of time. They asked me if I can consult with the team, which I did for a while, and then they asked me if I would join to run that group, which I did, and to figure out an exit strategy for how we can pull that out and make it a standalone company.
Mm. And when it came to NetWitness, you also had a co-founder then, right?
So I brought in a partner, Amit Yaran. So after we pulled it out and started going, then I brought him in.
Gotcha. And looking back, I'm sure there's maybe some reflections that you do here and there, thinking about that first company. What was the differentiator within the organization that really propelled it to where it went?
It was really the timing for that technology for the market was really good. And the whole concept of being able to do session traffic analysis and being able to do forensics on the network. We had one customer say it pretty succinctly and said, Wireshark's got a big brother, right? And so, it was a maturation of the industry. I think it was a maturation of people understanding and wanting to understand full-on session dynamics and metadata, and up to that point it was logs, right? Logs was kind of the currency that was being used, and we brought a lot of contextual understanding behind that. And so there was a lot of great timing, but we also had just a lot of great people, across the board.
And from just hearing you on other platforms, we had you on the Professional CISO podcast, and you brought up the fact that you were son of immigrants. Did that influence, your journey into being a founder?
Yeah, it really did. My brother and I, we'd pedal our bikes up to my dad's Texaco gas station, and we'd pump gas and change oil, fill up oil and fill up windshield fluid and clean and paint the islands and all the maintenance stuff. And I just watching my dad just run the gas station really, instilled in me back then that I didn't want a boss. I wanted to actually be, do my own thing, have my own company. I didn't know what that was going to be or what that was going to look like, but from a very early age, that was always something that I wanted to do.
And where were your parents from?
So Ukraine and Belarus.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And where are you from?
So I was born in upstate New York, in Rochester.
Oh, okay, so that's where you grew up. That's where the gas station was at.
That's where the gas station was at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Snowy winters, still riding up there?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
So that's amazing that you knew from early on that at some point you wanted to be your own boss. I think that's powerful to have at least a little bit of an inclination of where your future is going to take you, because you could use that as a North Star whenever you get confused or unmotivated. And you did it again after NetWitness. You ran NetWitness, you ultimately sold it, and then you started other companies. Before jumping into the other companies that you founded, what was the thing that pulled you into selling the business? Because in a way, you're kind of pulling yourself out of being your own boss. If you sell, then maybe you have to rest and invest for a while as well.
Yeah. It was the timing was right, to sell the business. And so, we did exit. It went to a great spot, had a lot of growth still there. A lot of folks stayed on for a long time there, which is unusual. And it had a lot of success, after we'd, sold it off. And, not all startups get that opportunity, right? Some startups go and they kind of never get going once they get bought by the acquirer. But I think, where it landed and the synergies there were really, really good.
Nice. So let's keep the story rolling. You sold NetWitness. The second company, it was eSentire, right?
Yeah. So after selling NetWitness, I was asked to be the chairman over at eSentire when the very first early money came into the business, and then I eventually became executive chairman, where I ran the whole business. And so we ended up, doing a really nice job there. We were on the, we were fortunate, with NetWitness, we were able to create a market. So we were able to create the Magic Quadrant for network forensics and network traffic analysis. And then at eSentire, we were actually able to help create the market for managed detection and response. But when I was there, we grew very rapidly. At NetWitness, we were number 21 in the Inc. 500. At eSentire, we were in the Deloitte Fast 500 all the time. So it was really good to be a part of, really fast-growing environments. And we ultimately sold that to Warburg Pincus, and eSentire is still an ongoing entity doing very well under Warburg's ownership.
Yeah, I got some close friends that work at eSentire. That's awesome that the companies that you've built, have a legacy and didn't go away after the founder goes away. You see that a lot in the world of cyber, but it seems like your path has been very resilient. What is the difference between chairman and executive chairman? Is that like the difference between president and CEO?
Well, when chairman, it was more a governance role where, I ran the board and obviously the CEO would report into me. And an executive chair means that you have an operational role. Even though you're chairman, you have an operational role in the company. So that's what we did. So the CEO stayed in place.
Yeah.
And I became the top operating executive in the business as the executive chairman. So it was a full-time job. I did that for quite a while. And we really built a good business there that that had a lot of parties interested in us, when we finally raised our hand to say it was time to sell.
What were some of the roles and responsibilities for executive chairman?
Really no different than that of a CEO, no different than that of a CEO who was also a chairman.
Okay.
So that was really it, so I had the CEO reporting into me, but it was the same type of motion that I had when, as if you were a CEO and chairman.
Yeah. I would imagine for an organization like eSentire, being the executive chairman and chairman, it's probably a bit different. When I'm looking at current cybersecurity companies, I see advisory boards, and that's a lot different than having a board of directors. I'm sure you've been on both. What are some of the similarities and differences for, looking at a chairman versus advisory board member?
Yeah, when you're an advisory board, you're kind of just there to help with questions or maybe, product related or go-to-market related items. There's no official capacity necessarily. But when you're on the board of directors, it's a governance role. So you have responsibility to govern the business properly and make sure that the business is doing everything it can to be the best that it can. So it's not an operating role, it's a governance role to make sure that that the organization is doing right by the shareholders, by the investors, right, and doing everything the right way.
Do a lot of companies today have that type of structure? Because I haven't really heard much about that in the cybersecurity space of having a board of directors.
Oh, yeah. Once you take on institutional money, they all have board of directors. So the second you take on seed funding or A-round funding, then you have a board that has investors on it, that has outside directors on it, that has usually typically founders and the CEO, which may be the same or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very common practice.
And when looking at moving from NetWitness to eSentire, CEO versus executive chairman, what were the opportunities that you felt like, I'm really good at this part? And then what were some of those challenges where you had to kind of like dig deep and learn more? Yeah,
I think I think for me, it was more of what I really enjoyed. So I grew up on the go-to-market side of the house and the sales side and running sales teams and organizations. And so I really gravitated towards, being on the go-to-market side and really owning the customer experience and how we help the customer and what we need to do there. And having it be kind of a sales-led organization to where, the needs would come in and we have to react to those needs and what the market's saying and make sure that we're building the things that are applicable and needed versus what we think we should be doing. There's certainly a place for that where, if you're bringing innovation to market, you have to put a stake in the ground and say, hey, listen, this is what it is and this is why it's important and we know best on what we need to build around it. But then comes a time when you have to listen to the customers where they go, hey, if you can do this and this, we're going to buy from you. And then if you have heard that multiple times, then obviously you want to go and do that and maybe slightly move the product in a certain direction or other. But I've always enjoyed that side of the house. And the technical side, the financial side, the technical side is obviously very closely tied to my whole concept of there's two things you do in a business is you build stuff and you sell stuff and everything else is a support function. Right. And so I really want to focus in on those two ends of it. And then, obviously, I have some input, but we've always had good people on the marketing side and the operations side and the finance side to kind of run that to where it's not something that I need to dig into. And quite frankly, it's very important for the business, but it's, in my opinion, it's not the important part to drive value. The important part to drive value is build a great product and then get people to really, embrace it and realize they need it and adopt it in the market space.
Right. So we spoke about NetWitness and eSentire, and there's a lot more to the story because we know it doesn't stop there for you. You founded more companies than just NetWitness and eSentire. The next one from our conversations that we spoke about was Fidelis. What's the backstory there?
Yeah, so with Fidelis, it was actually, I got a call from one of the private equity firms that had bid on and not gotten eSentire when we were selling it. And they'd asked if I would be interested in coming in and running it. They were looking for someone to come in and do a turnaround of the business. And Fidelis had some phenomenal technology, been around for a long time, since the early 2000s. And they had great networks technology, great detection technology, some endpoint technology. And they were just not being run probably as efficiently as they could be. So I was asked to come in and help do a turnaround. And so I did that. I brought some really good people to the table. We did a revamp of the product strategy. We did a revamp of the go-to-market. Brought in an entirely new North America sales team, and entirely new leadership across a lot of fronts. And we took a business that was hemorrhaging revenues, and we stopped it. We turned it around. We started growing double digits again, and then we packaged it up. Once it was in a place that was right for the sale, we sold it off to another private equity firm.
What were your thoughts on doing the turnaround versus starting from scratch?
I was really intrigued by doing the turnaround. At the end of the day, if you ask me if I'd rather do, startup, new, growth capital, or do a turnaround, I'd rather do the growth capital early stage. I mean, I've had a lot of success on that side and enjoy that real growth motion.
I've read a lot of books on business and founders, and from all the research that I've done, it takes a very special person to do multiple turnarounds, because it's like playing a game sometimes with your hand tied behind your back. You might not know everything about the organization when you're starting out, but for some people, they like that. And then for others, they want to kind of be able to just to build and know where everything is at from the jump.
Yeah. I'm the latter. I've determined from that I'm a growth leader. Yeah. And that's what I like to do. And it's easier to start with a clean sheet of paper, to do that, than it is that when you have to go in and decipher, what needs to be fixed and why and how, and then try to figure out the growth, how to reignite the growth engine. It was a great experience.
So let's talk about the new baby, the hot kid on the block that's coming up. You're building something that I think is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. Everyone has some type of security solution, and whether you know it or not, everybody does, because even the SaaS solutions that you have, they have some security mechanisms built in. Your laptops and devices, your assets, they have some security mechanisms built in. And what you're building with Interpres allows people to leverage what they already have and just optimize it. So talk through us a bit about how you came up with, how you and your co-founders came up with the idea, and why this space versus a crowded EDR market.
Yeah. So, what happened and how we got together was when we were Fidelis, we were doing some classified work. We were selling product into various classified areas in the government. And my co-founders, Jenks, Ian, Maurer, were working at a CSSP, working in the classified world. And we happened to cross over in these contracts where we were selling product in, and they were doing effectively the MDR management of the environments. And what they had come up with was a methodology that was really unique, and it was kind of threat infused, and it was an ability where you could look at an environment and make sure that it was optimized against the threats that are targeting that type of environment. And so it's a combination of bringing in, threat modeling on the organization to understand what threats are, in the wild or out attacking, organizations that look and smell and feel like you. So really, understanding the threat groups and the campaigns being run and the TTPs associated with and the malware being used and the CVs that are being exploited, and then tying that back into the defensive view of the world and saying, okay, what assets do we have that are exposed? What collection do we need to have from a log perspective in order to write the proper detections? What mitigations do we have available? And doing it holistically. So not looking at it on a product by product basis, but looking at it holistically so that we're covering the gaps and the seams in between the products that adversaries exploit. And doing that is something that, I've been wanting to do since NetWitness days, about, how do we make the ecosystem better? How do we make it work in harmony? How do we make the products work together in a way that it's not a fifth grade recital, but it's like the Boston Symphony where everything's, come together the right way. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're doing, is we've got this ability through our technology, which we've got multiple patents on now, to be able to holistically look at an environment and be able to decipher and understand the defensive security strategy and be able to expose it in a way that is meaningful, because it points you towards what needs to be prioritized and recommended to fix immediately, because those are the things that are swirling around out in the wild that will kill you right now.
When I first got introduced to Interpres, I kind of thought it was attack surface management, because I was like, okay, you have vulnerabilities, you have assets, and you're getting some recommendations. I was like, perfect, attack surface management. And then I learned about the adversarial component, like marrying that information with also what are the adversaries doing out there in the wild, like you're mentioning, looking at the threats. What made you all decide to add that component? Because I feel like that's a very new concept that's kind of like bridging the gap between IT, security, and threat intelligence.
Yeah, it was really, we wanted to be able to holistically be able to look at an environment and prescriptively be able to say, these are the actual things that matter the most. Mm-hmm. And blending those together in a way, the way that we blended it together, and the way that we patented the way that we do it is really unique. When we show it to people, we don't have people saying, oh, I don't get it, or no, this isn't needed. And instead, we have folks saying, yes, we get it, right? This is needed. Everyone needs this. And it's true. Every organization on the planet needs what we're doing, because it's that intelligence layer, it's that integration layer, it's that ability to bridge all of these siloed, non-integrated technologies together from vendors that simply don't want to work together. Mm-hmm. And so, we're doing it in a way where, we're effectively integrating them together without, just through a light touch, and very effective, very revealing in terms of, actions that an organization needs to take to optimize their defenses against those threats that are targeting them.
Right. What have you found to be the most surprising thing, jumping into this space versus the other spaces that you've lived in, like networking?
As the industry matures and there's more and more vendors out there, there's a lot of noise that's been created, and so there's a lot of money being spent on marketing versus on technologies that are differentiated. And I think that there's a lot of good technologies out there. There's a lot of great technologies out there. They're just not being utilized to their fullest potential. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the marketing departments are using all the same words. So until we show somebody what we do, there's some confusion because there's a lot of overlapping of words.
Right.
And we're fine with that, because when we show it, we can POC it. We've had a lot of success in very large hostile environments where, within an hour, right, outputs are there that are very meaningful, for security teams.
With being in a new space, you're, going to have your own definitions and the way that you describe your solution and product. And then you see someone like Gartner who shakes up everything and says, actually, you're this. Looking at Interpres Security and Gartner categorizes Interpres as continuous threat exposure management. Two kind of questions in there for you is, did you all use that terminology before Gartner started calling started defining the CTEM space? And if not, then how did you all define it before the category was created?
Yeah, the CTEM category, I mean, we facilitate that. We're really not a member of it, if you will, right? Because the way Gartner describes CTEM is it's more of a program, right? And they say they put all these products in there.
They force them.
Yeah, they put all these products in there, and they say, look, this would be great to be able to do continuous threat exposure management. And our view of the world is, yeah, agreed, but it's still, and they admit this, the products are still siloed, they're not integrated, there's no control plane to bring it all together. And our view is that, look, you can do this continuous threat exposure management with the technologies that you already have in play. Right, so you can do this minimally if you had a SIM and or data lake, if you have an EDR, if you have a vuln management capability, we'll be able to do it with those three alone. Now, if you give us cloud sensing and network sensing, and you give us email sensing and other things, even better, right? We'll just enrich it even more. But we can do that exposure management and be able to show you what that looks like. We can give you a view of asset management and show you what that looks like. And we can give you a view of threat exposure based on your threat profile. And then we tie those three pieces together. And we think that actually is a better way of doing continuous threat exposure management. So we're a facilitator for that. And the beauty of what we do is that we're not a sensor, we're not an agent. It takes less than an hour for us to plug in and install and be able to show value. We work in hybrid environments, so we can work in cloud only, we can work in on-prem, we can work in a combination of both. And the value proposition is that we're an analytic, right? We're an analytic. We want to be viewed as a trusted advisor to these organizations and the CISOs and the security teams, so that, we can not only help with the defense surface and securing the defense surface, but also really truly understanding the threat that you're facing from a TTP-based standpoint, not an IOC-based standpoint. We don't really care about that, but from a TTP-based standpoint. And then being able to marry that into your assets and into all the exposures that you have, and be able to, present to the company what matters to them, right? We've got a portion of our product that actually shows internal drift, right? So when things change internally, was logging turned off, was a detection changed, were configurations changed, we show all that in an activity feed, right? And that's really exciting. It's got a lot of value to it, and we're excited about the future and where we're going with this.
I feel like I met you 2 months too late, because right before we met, I started working on a attack surface management book, submitted the proposal to O'Reilly, they accepted it, and then I started to read more about CTEM, and I was like, oh my goodness, what I'm writing is like the precursor to CTEM. Like, CTEM encompasses attack surface management and other things like threat intelligence. If you want to fuse those two areas together, you create CTEM. And I definitely look at what you all are doing as like being the next generation of advisors, because you have to know about so many different facets of security and technology, and like you're saying, with that low touch. Looking at where you're at today with the company, moving into a round, I'm assuming, and looking into the future, where do you want to see the company go?
Well, we're going to continue to grow it. We feel we've got a great technology base. We've got it hasn't been announced yet. It's still, we unofficially got it, but we just got our third patent, which is
Congrats.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So we've got a lot more really interesting technological work that we think that is unique, that's going to be patented here coming up this year. And we've got a lot of great customers. We got a lot of great design partners. And we're just going to continue to keep growing a great company. We got great people, just rock stars in the organization. And we're going to keep bringing those people to the table and growing this, and then we'll see where it goes. The goal isn't to sell it, and the goal is to really help the industry and grow something that's needed. And this is a capability that's been needed in the industry forever. You got a lot of phenomenal companies with phenomenal technological capabilities, and everything is siloed and nothing works together. And we're providing the glue, at least from that defensive ecosystem standpoint, to be able to marry that together with the threat landscape and be able to truly understand, right, how do we need to defend ourselves against the things that are going to kill us? And so we're excited about that. We've got some really good ideas on the next things and the next pillars that we're going to build into the product.
Yeah.
So we should be announcing those over the coming 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And we're just going to continue to listen to the market and our customers and design partners and just continue to grow something that's pretty cool.
Perfect. Love that. There's a lot of people that listen to our show that listen to it for, inspiration from founders like yourself. They listen to the show for being a better cybersecurity practitioner. For anyone that's listening right now that wants to be a little bit of a better leader in the world of cyber, I feel like you're a great person to get advice from. What would be your one piece of advice to them?
Oh boy, to be a better leader. You have to be, you have to be genuine. You have to, you have to be honest. You have to, do what's right by your people, right? And, have their best interests in mind, have your customers' best interests in mind. And I think just being a good leader is just, trying to be a good person and doing what's right, but also having an understanding that, you've got a responsibility to your employees, to your investors, right, to your customers. And a lot of it is bringing great people on that know how to do their jobs way better than you do.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's probably the biggest thing is, as a leader, just make sure that you're hiring people that are just outstanding. And that ultimately drives the business the most.
Powerful. Nick, thank you so much for spending some time out of your busy day to jump on the mics with us, and also being a great partner. Putting on events like this with us really helps Hacker Valley reach our audience and kind of like share more insights and wisdom. And it always feels better to do it in person. So big thank you to you and the Interpres Security team. For anyone that wants to stay up to date with Nick, be sure to check out the show notes or description wherever you're listening or watching. You could also find a link to Interpres Security. Be sure to check them out. That is the best way to support the podcast. And with that, we will see everyone next time.